The fishing story about what was it you said, Paul, out there? It was the one that
got away.
The one that got away.
The one that got away.
Yeah. I think Barry lost a big one the other day or something. Is that what y'all were talking about?
Yeah, it's a rare one, and he just couldn't bring it in.
I lost it, and you lose one like that, it takes a lot with it.
Yeah.
Your hopes, your happiness, and your dignity.
Wow.
Along with your fly.
Man, I didn't.
Wow.
Don't.
I tell you,
your eyebrows went up first.
I was watching. I was like, he's going to do it.
Yeah, no, I bit my tongue. I didn't say it. Oh. His fly went right next to Uranus is where that ended up.
Wow.
What?
Wow. Unreal. Like right when you think it's at a certain level, it goes to a whole nother level.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about levels, have you ever strapped your kid to a tree while you were
fly fishing?
While you were fly fishing?
Tethered them to the tree.
I heard that was a thing. Barry, have you heard anything about that?
I have done it.
And I think the word was used, and it's a unique word, was cougar bait.
Cougar bait, yeah.
Cougar bait.
Like
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Did you decide?
Mountain
don't
lion
worry,
bait.
Paul. Don't Paul. We know where we're going. You'll catch up in a minute.
We'll bring you up to speed.
When you woke up that morning and you took your 2-year-old fly fishing, did you say to yourself, when I get out there, I'm going to strap this kid to the tree?
I did not. It happened just as a matter of, seemed like the thing to do. And I would say she looked more like mountain lion bait. Cougar bait has a different connotation.
That's true. Yeah, I bet my tongue on that one too.
He had to shine a light on it. I'm just going to let it be out there.
He's just going to let that light shine.
So Barry, were you thinking in terms of while I fish, if a mountain lion were to try and come near me, if I put my kid out here, tether him to a tree,
I'm safe.
It's the old thing about the bear, the guy that runs faster.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I don't have to outrun.
So does your kid know this story? Because if not, we might need to bleep this out on the podcast.
I don't know if she knows it or not.
She was strapped to a tree while you were fly fishing.
Tethered.
This
How
does
much-
not bode well.
Yeah, as I remember the story, it was because it seemed safer than her finding her way to the river. So there's some logic in it.
There was.
How long was the leash or tether?
I don't know, probably 6 or 8 feet, something like that.
She had room to roam.
Yeah. All right. Well, while we're talking about torturing kids, welcome to another Misfit Social podcast, boys.
Hey, we're in Colorado.
Very good to have you on, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Colorado's a lot of trout fishing, right? I mean,
Yes,
right
it is.
right here in Breckenridge.
Yes.
You been fishing here?
I have. I plan to do so in very short order.
That's going to happen in a few hours. In fact, we might need to speed this recording up a little bit so we can dip our toes in the water.
So I rode in his truck on the way from the airport and didn't pay much attention, loaded up, got out, and I was looking up at this rack, and I'm like, what is that? It's like this long, it's a fly fishing rod thing, on the top of his truck. Then he opens the back of his truck and pulls out a box. It's built-in fly fishing box. I mean, this guy's next level.
So this is not just something that you do as a pastime or for therapy. This is full-on problematic hobby.
Yes, it is a passion, and it's kind of interesting how I ended up doing it. It's interesting how sometimes our fathers have an effect on our lives, and over the long haul. And my dad, when I was young, I was a Midwestern kid. He would tell the story of fly fishing in Montana. And I kind of romanticized that in my mind when I would hear it as a child.
River runs through it.
Montana fly fishing. I didn't know anything about that. And I moved here to Colorado in 91, and just kind of a longing to be where the mountains are. And I had a friend of mine said, I'm going to take you fly fishing this weekend. And that was 1996, and I threw all my other fishing gear away after that experience, and that's all I've done for 30 years.
So as a lifestyle, though, you were a fisherman.
I was.
So what kind of fish were you into? Just like freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing?
Yeah, freshwater. Back in the Midwest, bass fishing, pike fishing, that kind of stuff. But fly fishing is a completely different sport. It's a combination of fishing and hunting and strategy and stealth and It definitely is a lot more complex, but it's a lot more engaging and a lot of fun.
Have you ever saltwater fly fished?
I have not. It's on the bucket list though.
So there's a place that we've been fishing in Guatemala, and the sailfish there school.
Yeah.
And so it's not uncommon to have like 30 to 50 strikes a day.
Wow.
And it literally gets, you'll catch so you'll raise so many that what you're trying to do if you fish for 3 days, you're just trying to get creative. So it's like, who can catch one on a Zebco 202 or whatever it is. But a lot of guys go there and they fly fish because they're very populated there, and because they school, you can kind of target them a little bit easier. So if you ever think about going somewhere to saltwater fish, yeah, it's a good place to go.
Yeah, that sounds like.
What about tungsten? Do you use any tungsten in any of your flies?
I do. That's an interesting question. Yes, one of my favorite flies is a tungsten fly. It's a tungsten stone fly.
Okay.
And it has a great action to it that is a lot of fun to fish because it's an emerger type pattern that is used.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to unpack that because that's Spanglish for me. But
well, emerger. So the bugs that hatch in the rivers, they hatch in the bottom, and then they emerge into the river as an evolving larvae, and then they become what's called a dry fly when they mature and get to the top.
Okay, so they're actually living in the water at one point?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes. And so the tungsten stonefly mimics an emerger that is coming up from the bottom as an evolving larvae.
Oh, wow.
And the tungsten helps it sink into the water and give it the proper action to attract the fish. So
are there any restrictions here in Colorado for lead flies at this time, or?
I'm not aware of those.
Okay. All right.
Do you make your flies, or are they?
You know, I have not tied my own flies. It's just an aspect of the sport that I've never really had time for.
Yeah.
I have a fly tying kit that was gifted to me, and I never dusted it off. I just look for the pattern I want and I buy it.
Yeah.
But maybe when I get older and I'm less engaged than what I am now, I may try that. I may engage that part of it because I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe that becomes a little bit of extra therapy for you around the whole sport.
Sure.
The Orvis, I was in one of their stores down in Destin, Florida, and I knew that tungsten was used in the actual fishing weights because back home bass fishing and all that, they're very common. A lot of the professional fishers love the worm weights and things like that. And I saw that the jig heads were being made tungsten, but what I didn't realize is there was a round container, and it was called tungsten paste. So I asked the guys, like, hey, what's this for? And I guess instead of what do they call the line on a fly rod? Because it's like rubbery or plastic, right?
Yeah, you have a fly line that can either be floating or sinking, and then you have a leader on the front of it.
Okay,
depending on what kind of fishing you're doing.
So the way the guy described it to me is that you put it, I guess, on the leader, which would be more like monofilament, right?
Right.
And I guess it can put some weight on it.
Yes, it does.
But that caught me totally off guard that they made a tungsten paste.
Yeah. So you use the weight to get down into the water when you are fishing those emerger type patterns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you need some weight to get down there into where the fish are.
So you said that the line, there's a type of line that will float and
Yes.
a type that will sink?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's solely based on, and does that mean you would have to change your entire reel out for all of the fly line?
It depends.
Okay.
Yes, you will want to use a sinking line for certain applications, but usually the type of fishing that we do here, a sinking leader is enough, or you use a tungsten pattern or weight to put the leader down into the water and get to where the fish are.
Yeah.
And times of the year matter, I assume, because what you're using, what you're baiting with.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the time of year depends on what kind of bugs are hatching, and wintertime is a lot of fun because the only thing you're fishing is really small bugs that live in really cold water. But and the fish won't move very much in those cold waters to take a fly, but you can catch some of the biggest fish that are out there in the wintertime. You get the right pattern in front of them, they're going to take it.
Wow.
What's your absolute favorite thing to do in fly fishing? Like your favorite thing to fish or favorite area? What's your favorite?
My favorite thing is dry fly fishing, sight fishing. There's nothing like it. When it's a combination of hunting and fishing where you see the fish that you're after. You see it, and
You see them coming and following it. And
well, you see the fish you're targeting before you cast. You walk upstream, fish face upstream to see the food that's coming downriver. So the strategy is to walk upstream, and you can actually see the fish in the water depending on the color of the water, the depth, the type of fish, etc. And that's my favorite thing, is to eyeball a fish that I want to catch and have to strategize how I'm going to approach.
that's incredible.
And how I'm going to plan my presentation, because presentation is everything. You can have the right bug tied on your line, but if it doesn't present as a real piece of food to that fish, they're not going to take it.
Okay, last night you were talking about fly fishing like it was easy, and it's starting to sound really hard now.
Well, it can be technical. There's definitely varying grades of difficulty.
Yeah.
It depends on where you're fishing. Now, if ostensibly I'm going to take some guys fly fishing for their first time while I'm here, I'm not going to take you into technical fishing. I'm going to go into some easier places that
He's taking us to the Pay Lake. That's what he's saying.
They don't feed those fish in there.
That's right.
you pay by the fish,
Yeah,
and they charge by the inch. So
there you go.
So the fly fishing keeps you sane, but there's a few other things that pay the bills and keep you busy
yes,
in life.
so true.
You said that when you came here you live in Denver, right?
I do.
So when you came to Denver and started fly fishing, just kind of what brought you here to this area, and where did you live before you moved to this area?
You know, I originally grew up outside of Chicago, Illinois, and it's interesting, really, the reason I came to Colorado, it was the call of the mountains.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. I wanted, I felt that in my life. I just felt a call to nature and the expanse of nature and the mountains. And 1989, I tried to make the move from Illinois to Oregon into the Cascades, the Pacific Northwest. And I was a young kid. I did okay. I lasted a little while, but I didn't make it out there. So I went back home to Illinois for a little bit less than a year, and then the call came to me again. I can't live here. I need to be where the mountains are.
Yeah.
I need to be with nature, et cetera. So I came here to Colorado in 1991, and it's been home to me ever since.
And what was your field career at that time?
I was kind of wandering at that time. I had squandered a lot of my educational years on other pursuits. And, so when I came to Colorado, it was more of a call without direction. And my life had kind of been a dead end sort of existence at that time. But when I came out here, things seemed to start to flow for me. And so, even though the education thing didn't go well for me, and, I never really liked school. As much as I like learning, I never liked school. So
I can second that.
Yeah. So when I came here, I was a little bit directionless when I first arrived, but that changed kind of quickly.
Always in construction?
On and off, yes. But back in Illinois, it was, I'm come from a town called Rockford, and they produce fasteners there. So I worked in metals. I actually worked on centerless grinders, and, I was in production with a big company there. And this was before NAFTA. So my hometown, they had a lot of manufacturing in metals, fasteners, screws, and, so I worked on some interesting stuff, some marine stuff, some aerospace stuff. When I was a kid, I operated grinders, and as I've learned recently about your business, we had kind of the coolant sludge from when we're grinding and making parts that we had to get rid of. So there's kind of a connection there I have way back in my childhood with some of the stuff that you do.
What kind of grinder were you running? Was it like a centerless grinder?
Yes,
or
centerless grinders.
And what was the part you were making?
Well, I made a lot of different parts. I would run 4 machines at a time. So, but I ran everything from rail parts to marine parts and aerospace, things like that. One of the parts I ran was a spline for Outboard Marine Company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were using tungsten probably in the tooling for that?
Probably was. We used diamonds to dress the wheels and things like that. I wasn't in it long enough to probably know some of the details as if someone who had been doing it for years. But that's how I started out as a teenager in metals. And
when did tungsten really take its prominence in the tool business?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here. But it really started taking off at the turn of the 19th century. Is where it really started, because when you get the Industrial Revolution and all the production of steel, okay, they can make the steel, they can make the plating, but how are you going to turn that into a part? So if like, for example, we see trains going by all the time, but you don't think about the fact, how did they get that into a circle? And they can cast that into a circle, that's fine. But
now you have to tool it.
But just to cast it into a circle, but then get it to run steel on top of steel, and it not be like going down the. So what they do is they take large tungsten carbide inserts and they turn that to thousandths of an inch so that that train runs smooth, and then over a period of time, those wheels will actually wear down. In Europe, where they have so much high-speed rail, they actually have a mobile device where they can actually lift the car on the rail, and it will CNC it and just kind of lap it down, so that if it gets a flat spot, they're just taking like a hair off of it just to make sure. It's like rotating your tires or getting a flat spot out of them.
But some version of that technology was around in the 1800s even. Not the CNC obviously, but
the tungsten was discovered around the late 1800s, and then they started trying to form parts with it. And then as the Industrial Revolution came along, it not only went into those parts, but also into ammunition as well. Was a big one. Debbie West, who was a guest on last season, she worked for a company, and they would get old parts in from the U.S. government that were being like decommissioned. And so they got one pallet of material in, and it was just all these little wooden crates. Like when I say small, I'm talking like a cigar box, not much. Maybe twice the size of your cell phone. And it was stamped from Spain, and it was tungsten ore out of the ground. And it was stamped from like the early 1930s. So it's been around for a while, been in use for a lot of, for I'm going to say probably 150 years or more. Yeah. But yeah, to Barry's point, and all of that machine, especially with aerospace, the making of rivets, all that. And it's funny that you're from Rockford, because one of my biggest customers and suppliers lives in Rockford.
Okay.
Yeah. It's called, his business is called Voss Metals, and he's in a little bit more of a specialty. He does we don't do a lot of pure tungsten, but Dave gets into that. And he's a pretty cool guy, and so I've been to Rockford a few times.
I'm sorry for you.
So you get to Colorado, the mountains are calling. You had to go. You probably dabbled a little bit, wandered a little bit. How do you start making your living at that point? What are some of the things that take place then?
I picked up work with construction companies and that type of thing. I was just trying to find my way the first couple of years. And my life really turned spiritually a lot, actually, when I first came to Colorado. So my life became directed in a very different way. And my vocation kind of began to fade as the most important thing in my life, as my life was reprioritized. And so, but a couple years after I moved here in 1993, there was just an opportunity that came up with someone I had met to start a business. And that was not something I'd ever really thought about doing. But when I heard the idea, it just clicked with me. And I said, yeah, we need to do that right there. And it was something that I gravitated to instantly. So when my business first started in 1993, it started as a partnership, which lasted a whopping 9 weeks, I think. And yeah, but by January 1 of 1994, I was on my own. And I've been running my business ever since.
And that was concrete, right? Or masonry?
Masonry. Yeah, concrete's involved in it. I've done a lot of concrete through the years, but mostly masonry, brick, block, and stone, and historical work, those kinds of things. And yeah, I didn't know what I was doing when I first started.
What was that initial idea that you were like, yeah, we can do this? What was that? Was it masonry?
Actually, it wasn't. It's really interesting. The first idea was a chimney cleaning company, chimney sweeping.
Yeah.
And so my business, actually, the starting of my business is kind of it's a great story. It's, if you live in a capitalist ideal, it's the type of story that you say, yeah, that's what this is all about. We had, I bought a car. It was a 74 Sedan DeVille. It was white. I think I spent $300 to buy this car.
Sedan DeVille.
Sedan DeVille. And to start the chimney sweep business, I borrowed a vacuum from somebody at church, a shop vac, and I borrowed a ladder from the neighbor across my back fence. And we went over to the print shop and we designed a flyer, and we spent $60 printing flyers. And we went out and passed those flyers out, and we strapped that ladder to the roof of that Sedan DeVille.
That's what I'm talking about.
And we waited for the phone to ring, and the phone started ringing. And we'd show up in that white Sedan DeVille with a 40-foot ladder strapped to the roof. We called ourselves the Flues Brothers.
How'd you keep one end from touching or the other end from not touching? How'd you keep it balanced on top of that car?
Ropes. Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, you had it strapped down on each
we
end.
had it strapped down. It was a sight. It was a sight. And I had never done anything like that in my life. You know, I come from a manufacturing town, a manufacturing background. I didn't go through school and get a degree and find a career. But when this opportunity came up, it was just struck something creative in my soul, and here it goes. And it just started, and we grow. I'll never forget, we grossed $6,300 our first month. And I learned what it was to repair a chimney and tuck point brick. And repair a lot of the chimneys we worked on where we passed out flyers in Denver. They were old brick homes, and the chimneys all needed work.
Yeah, I mean, just for context, I mean, back in the 90s, I would assume that people were still using wood burning fireplaces
Yes.
on a regular basis as a primary source of heat, not just something that looks nice in the distance, right?
That is true. As a matter of fact, it was not long after that they started instituting wood burning bans in Denver.
Oh.
So it really did evolve not long after that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that was a thing. That was still a thing in that marketplace. It was, you need to get your chimney cleaned. You've got to have it swept periodically, or you run the risk of a fire.
Yeah, inside of the chimney. Yeah.
And so we passed out flyers, and we targeted neighborhoods that had old brick homes, and it took off.
But the subsequent business was the masonry part, which was more lucrative then, I assume.
It was. What's interesting is I was just starting to learn what masonry work was, how to repair brick, mortar, those kinds of things, when my partnership abruptly ended. And I think you can assume how that went. I mean, it's like all partnerships. They're either a good fit or they're not, and it just wasn't. And so I rebuilt my first firebox in January of 1994. I didn't know what I was doing. It was probably an hour job. It took me 2 days. And I just,
And you couldn't just Google it.
No, there
Like
wasn't.
there was no YouTube to be
YouTube.
like, how do I do this?
No.
Right?
No,
You
it
gotta dig to
Yep.
find out.
The old idiom, you bloody your knuckles
Yeah.
and you learn.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And I learned how to lay brick. I learned how to repair brick. I learned how to mix mortar. And that's how my business really started. Of course, I changed ownership the 1st of 1994. And that's how I started.
Yeah.
And
Give us just a little insight, so you're sweeping chimneys and you own a masonry business that's going on 33 years, I think now.
yes.
Yeah. So what I'm fascinated by is you're paid to sweep the chimney. How did that lead to needing to help a customer or fix their chimney?
Well-
That's what I'm not fully connecting. I think it's fascinating as we move forward in the conversation.
Well, when you sweep a chimney, you've got to go up on the roof with the broom.
Okay.
You have to get the vacuum down below, and you have to go up on the roof with the broom, and so you have eyes on the chimney and the condition of it, and you talk to your customer about, hey, we're here, we can fix this for you.
Yeah.
And so
You got some damage around it.
yeah,
or whatever.
you need a
Yeah.
crown wash. You need some tuck pointing.
It
You
needs
need
some
to
attention too.
You need
Yeah.
to relay some brick. And one of the funny things is I did not do well with heights back then. I was at all. I mean, when
relate to that.
This man,
Yeah.
he feels your pain.
when I say I didn't do well with it, that was an understatement. And so I remember the first chimney I had to climb myself. I mean, when I had a partnership, you know what my job was.
Yeah,
I was
on the
inside
ground.
with a shop vac.
Yeah, you running that vacuum,
Yeah, I
not
don't
climbing
care-
the ladder.
I don't care how dirty I get. I ain't getting on that roof.
Yeah.
So, but after I went out on my own, I got to repair that first chimney, and it was a little small 1-story house. I'm up there about 12 feet. If I hugged my wife right now like I hugged that chimney that day, she'd want to know what was up. But I hugged that thing so as time went on, that was one of the things I had to overcome was in the beginnings of my masonry business, it was all chimneys. I had to overcome the height thing. And so there wasn't an alternative to that.
You could tie yourself to the chimney like you tied your daughter to the just a tangential thought. I don't know.
Yeah. I did tie myself off onto some of those higher chimneys. Yeah. But I had to overcome all of that fear to get the business off the ground. But I think that's probably what motivated me to think about hiring people.
Yeah. So I want to back up and I want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Mm-hmm.
How much money did you pay for the Cadillac?
$300.
And you borrowed a ladder
Borrowed a ladder,
and you borrowed a vacuum.
a vacuum.
Okay. Your dad didn't set up a trust fund
Nope.
for you to just go out and
I left home. I was out here on my own.
yeah. So to the generation that's out there now, if you've got somebody out there that wants to start a business, what's your advice?
Well, my advice is embrace the side of your life that is a creator, that is creative. I've always felt, we're made in the image and likeness of God, and who is God but a creator? So we have that ability. And that's what really appealed to me. Nobody told me how to start a business.
Right.
I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't.
You
I didn't
go
read
to-
a book.
You hadn't went to Princeton or Harvard
No.
or Columbia.
No, I did not. They would not have taken me, for the record. I was not a guy that really loved the educational system. So I did not excel in school, although I feel like I had a 3-digit IQ probably. I was maybe smart enough, but I didn't have that educational piece. But the entrepreneur thing, I embraced it because there was a creativity to it.
Yeah.
And I think in this day and age, a lot of people get robbed of that. They're going to other places for creativity. Let me go to Google and Chat GPT, and let me have something digitized and impersonal create for me. And I think it can actually steal some of the potential story that is trying to evolve in your life. And I feel actually almost fortunate that I predated a lot of that stuff.
You talked about creativity like you're So some things are pretty mechanical. I mean, you're putting up a masonry wall,
Yes,
doesn't feel like creativity. What to you, but it can be, right?
it can be. Yes.
What is your favorite kind of project? Like, this gets me going still.
Probably my favorite type of project is when we are overcoming obstacles to what the desired outcome is, like structural challenges where you have to figure out engineering wise what it is that you need to do, or design wise in historical restoration. How do I make this 120-year-old wall look like it did 120 years ago? And so that part, I love that part of it. We just did a building on the historical district of Golden. We put a new facade on a 100-year-old building. But what we did is we employed detail work that is from the early 1900s, turn of the century.
Yeah.
Detailed corbel work and ornate precast stone details, things. I love that stuff. And it's brand new, but people look at it and they stop and they look at that building because it's beautiful architecture.
It's got character.
It's got character.
And you took the time to bring it back to life, right?
Yes. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff.
Just if I can back up just 1 second on the entrepreneurial thing. When you said, okay, I'm going to go start this business, was your motivation to be wealthy? Like why did you say I'm going to do this? I want to be a business owner. I get the creativity part, but outside of that, what was the drive?
Well, I would say at some level there's a survival mode that kicks in. You've got to make your way in this world.
Yeah.
And for someone who didn't have, an education or a career per se, I'm looking for that vehicle that could bring me success, and not really raised with that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
I felt like, well, this is an avenue where I don't have to be necessarily top tier educated, but maybe whatever talents I have can come out and produce a living for me in a way that supersedes trading hours for dollars.
Yeah. I have a big concern with our culture of the United States right now, that we're moving into an entitled welfare state. And that the only drive to go do what you did would be not as survival driven as it is, I'll do that if I can be a millionaire. And that generation, my dad's generation, your generation, Warren Buffett's generation, those guys just had an entrepreneurial spirit. They weren't doing it because they wanted to be wealthy or have yachts or have jets. Now, a lot of people have achieved that from that generation, but that was not the impetus. And I see a lot of kids right now so I've got a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, and, I feel like one of the challenges is explaining to them that you have to work for this and you're not entitled to it. Like, they're third generation kids as far as the business, the entrepreneurial side of it. Yeah. My dad started it. Now I'm running it. They're G3s. And I'm like, just because your last name is my last name does not qualify you for any inheritance, period. I'm going to pay for your education and I'm going to get you a nice suitcase. But outside of that, you have to do the work. And I just have a real concern. I'm not saying that kids don't want to work. That's not my point. I'm saying I think society and education right now is framing it in a certain way that's like, if you can't have certain things and have a certain lifestyle, then you're not going to put in that extra effort, take that extra risk that you took. Do you kind of see that same way? Or
Absolutely, I see that. I think our culture is definitely going in that direction, and really the modern trends that young people are experiencing right now is stripping them of that creativity, because that creativity requires more than dreaming it. You don't just dream of what you want to build.
Yeah,
You've got to build it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You can dream of building a brick wall, but somewhere you got to mix mud and grab some bricks.
Yeah.
And so there is a functional aspect to to creativity, career building, business building, that it falls back on a work ethic that it really is at some level. That work ethic is being stripped out of this generation in some regard. I do agree with you on that.
Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? So you're going to starve or you're going to figure something out, and you figure it out.
Yeah, me and food have a long-standing relationship.
Well, it's worth noting that that's been human history. But now we're so opulent, so prosperous, that there's this new condition that you're talking about that's coming in.
What do you mean? What's been human history?
I do this thing and work
survive.
hard, invent, or I starve. It's really that fundamental. You know, not to say that everything's always been poverty line, but that threat has always been there. And now we have so much prosperity that we've almost created a generation or two so removed from that being a possibility that now we're starting to see more effects psychologically of feeling entitled to certain things because we're out of touch with how hard it is to actually survive as a human being in the real world ultimately.
Yes. I mean, even the fragility of life tends to not get looked at until you have a close
Something happens.
brush with something. I think
It's not a day-to-day.
Yeah.
Not a day-to-day, but it was and has been for most of human history.
Yeah.
It's right there looking at you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think one of the things we're seeing at Tunco with some of the younger people that we're hiring like they were either in high school during the pandemic or they finished their college, that had an impact on them. Because as a young person, you don't really have to face mortality for yourself, like the fear of, I mean, if you're below the age of 30 and the likelihood that you're going to die before then in the United States is very unlikely outside of some rare accident. But in those days, we lived for 18 months, you know, in absolute fear and panic. And what we're seeing is when that generation that went through high school, college, where that really influenced them, when we're talking about employee engagement and employee experience, what is experience for somebody who's in their 50s right now, for somebody who's in their 20s, it's getting harder to balance that because their priorities of what's important in life has changed.
So you're saying it was a negative impact or a positive impact for the people that came through the pandemic like that?
I'm not saying it's either. I'm saying it.
What are you seeing,
It was
though?
just having more is less important
Oh, for this new generation.
for this new generation. So if you said, "Hey, I would give you a job that pays X, but you're going to have to work 55 hours a week to do that," a lot of them would say no.
Yeah.
They would be more in line with remote work. Can I do 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but definitely not 6 days a week. That kind, and I'm not questioning their work ethic. I think when you what we're learning is when we sit down with them, their values have changed, and they're just saying, "Hey, a 6-figure job sounds great, but it's not great if it costs me this." And they're okay with that. A lot of them don't see the dream of owning a house anymore as the American dream
Because it's so expensive.
That old boy's got a lot of quit in him.
Yeah.
Well,
You ever hear that phrase? That old boy's
yeah,
got a lot of quit.
and the challenge is then if their managers are in their 50s and 60s, that's the pushback that you hear from that generation is like, that boy's got a lot of quit, like you said, you know. But what we're learning, especially Royce is coming on with coaching, and we're really unpacking some depth in people's lives, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And just
It's more nuanced than just there's a lot of quit in there.
Yeah, correct. And so I just think my therapist that I see personally, one of the things that he and I talk about a lot is he feels like we have not really grieved as a world what the pandemic was and how that's impacted our lives, because the world just had to keep going. And so we never really stopped and said, okay, well, how has that changed? How has that impacted? I actually met a student the other day, and she was like, yeah, I didn't get to graduate college her senior year. She was pandemic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just little things like that you can be like, well, that's no big deal, but it's a big deal for them.
Well, like
so you can't
my
say
daughter's
that
same
it's not.
thing. You know, she didn't get to graduate from high school, so every birthday, every holiday, everything where you celebrate is like times 10 for her. Like, you can't have a casual celebration. She wants to go over the top on all of it. It's almost like she feels like she got robbed of something.
Yeah.
And that's a grieving process. My son had a drive-through graduation.
Nice.
Like, he just got out of the, yes, we did a drive-through. You're driving through in cars and you hop out, take pictures real quick with almost
so
nobody.
crazy.
You're like, hey, what's up?
It's a super disconnected,
Yeah.
painful process when you should be celebrating with friends, hugging, high-fiving.
Yeah.
So what do you think that means for the workforce or for entrepreneurial implications? Do you think you're going to see less of it?
It affects grit for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, and when you're referring to grit, Royce, you're talking about like the grit where we say like,
Grind it
what
out.
is grit? You know,
Yeah,
like a cowboy.
Yeah, not just
you know?
tungsten grit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What it takes to make that wall get built.
yeah.
It takes a lot to
So-
see it through.
What we're implementing right now is we've been doing employee engagement surveys to really just say, hey, we're not saying that if you believe this, it's wrong. We just want to know how you're feeling, like what is motivating you. It doesn't do us any good to give them another raise or to give them overtime if what they really want is better vision insurance. I mean, so just getting into all those things, or if they want more days off so they could spend it with their kids. So if I back up a couple decades ago, pretty much everybody's like, just race me to six figures as fast as I can get there. I'm not worried about vacation time. I'll pack my own insurance. I just want the salary number to be as high as I can possibly get it to. But that game has totally
People want
shifted.
health insurance. They want flex time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just, and I'm not saying that it's a good or bad thing. It's just a way of the world. We see the world. But getting back to Barry just a little bit, we kind of skipped over the spiritual side that brought you out here. So if we can just kind of focus on that for a couple minutes.
Sure.
What was that journey like, and where are you at, if you can share that, where are you at spiritually? Where's your faith at today?
Sure. There always was that, it's like the call of the mountains and nature, so to speak. And a longing for God feels very similar, which I had. I had that in my life, and I didn't know where it was leading me spiritually, but it led me here geographically to Colorado. And interestingly enough, 3 months after I got here, my life completely changed spiritually. I was born again in August of 91, and it kind of led into how my life was being lived and how I took the process of life, looking to be led in my life by the Spirit. And that's how I ended up with the business Denver Masonry Company. But it also led to what I feel is, an even higher calling than the entrepreneurial world or the business world, which is the spiritual side. I mean, I became very active and engaged in ministry. And so that has grown and progressed all of these years since 91. And I've been in full-time ministry now for well over 20 years. And I'm currently bi-vocational. I'm pastoring a church now for 8.5 years while I also run my company. So the company, a lot of times when you look at the bi-vocational side, that a contracting company or any type of business could be a means to an end for a higher calling, but I don't really see it that way. The calling, the entrepreneurial calling, the business calling, it's part of it. I feel like I'm shepherding my business as much as I am shepherding a flock in the Spirit.
So just real quick, when you say higher calling, then you're not decoupling the construction business with the calling.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
So
they work together.
So when you say higher calling, just unpack that a little bit.
Well, the higher calling, I think that I guess in one regard, you could look at the spiritual side of it. That's easier to see as a higher calling. I think if I unpacked what's inside of my life, they dovetail and they are symbionts, and you can't really separate them.
Correct.
For me.
Yeah.
But when you look at it from a purely spiritual mindset, I think from the outside perspective, you would say that the spiritual work that I do would appear to be the higher calling. And from some perspective, it may be, but for me, they are symbionts, and I do both with an equal amount of commitment and passion.
Yeah. So that spiritual journey that led you out here really encompassed everything from your concrete business to the fact that you're leading a gathering now on regular. How many people do you have in your?
Well, our church just multiplied, so there's 2 congregations now. A pastor went and started another work, and so we're kind of back down to our lowest attendance in 8.5 years, which we're down around 50 to 60 people, depending. But we're at a moment, it's just like any other entrepreneurial endeavor where I am, but in this, I am not the sole creator. I am a co-creator with God.
You like your partner now a little bit better.
I do. I love my partner.
Lasted longer than 9 weeks.
It did. And even though from the outside looking in, you might say that the trappings of what I'm doing seem to be at kind of a lower place than what they have been, but yet I feel like I'm in a higher place of creative potential than I have been ever, I would say.
In America, the average size church is 75 or less. I mean, that is the size church. And some would say that, oh, that's bad leadership. You might also just flip the script and say that's what people need.
Exactly.
Right? So they find their way to it
because
it's what they need. They need a tribe. They need to feel some belonging. And I think we have this is an aside, but I think we've measured success within the spiritual community by numbers in a way that is unfair and really not the true measure, right? So the health of communities may be that it needs to be smaller, and to embrace that is okay.
Yeah. Yeah, from an anthropological standpoint, the culture is always evolving. Mm-hmm. And I think any kind of institution, whether we're talking about the church, some other kind of nonprofit where you're trying to meet needs, if we're not nimble to where we can evolve and be creative like what you're talking about, I think what can tend to happen, it's not guaranteed, but what can tend to happen is you get cultural separation. So the culture society moves, evolves in some way. And we're not talking about rightness, wrongness, anything like that. We're just talking about how culture moves along the line of time. And then whatever the organization is, like, for example, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, that's another one that if you're not staying up with what's going on in society, a model that they set in 1980 may not necessarily work in 2010. So that's awesome that you guys are evolving, having that creativity, and trying to just stay on that journey that brought you out here.
Yes,
not get off that path or the way like we've talked about. You're trying to stay on that journey.
Yeah, and to the point that you made about the two things coming together, I would not be able to do what I'm doing as far as adaptability and sustainability when it comes to the spiritual work of the church if I was not bivocational. So I feel that I have been empowered to do things that are not constrained by the need to operate your spiritual gathering in a way that you make sure it keeps producing for you a living. I don't have to do that. Yeah. So I am much more upwardly mobile spiritually, if you can put it in those kind of terms, where I feel that I feel freed to do things like for the church to multiply,
right?
And maybe when it wasn't numerically at a place where it could financially sustain it, we are.
It's truly an altruistic effort.
Yes.
For you, it's truly an altruistic effort because there's no benefit coming back other than the fact that you're answering your call.
Because it's work. The church part's work.
Yes, it is.
But it's not paying the bills per se.
Right.
But would you say that allows you to take more risks with what you feel being led for the benefit of people? You're able to hear voices that say, "Hey, drive to Fargo."
Hey,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
see
those
a buffalo
wild
running
the
events.
through
only
your
person
living
I had to
room?
get past on that was my wife.
Right.
So
But just the call of the wild sometimes gets
Yes.
squelched by the practicality of, can I pay for this? Can I? And I guess I want to go talk to me on that. But the other thing I'd like to is that higher calling word is, some may start a business to make lots of money, but what I'm hearing, when we can look even at our businesses as a higher call, when it begins to facilitate a broader good that's more than just money or power or influence. I'm hearing that. How would you respond to that? Do you see that way? Because your work seems sacred. Your bricklaying seems sacred because of how it infuses this grander sense of meaning that you have about it.
Well, that is so true. And true to form, you have a way of tapping those things in my soul when you mention those things. You're so right. I am able to, like we talked about before, when you talk the call of the wild, so to speak, I mean, that is the higher calling in the story. That is the higher, that is the adventure, that is God, that is life itself. And so, that's what called me out here originally. And yes, that bivocational piece frees me up to hear that call and respond to it in ways that I would otherwise be limited and not able to be nearly as attentive to take those risks. You know, it would be, and I shouldn't. You can still take risks, but then the reality is there. If that's your only stream of income, it's only human to begin to reduce those decisions down to, how does this affect my survivability and my efficacy in earning a living and providing for my family, where I am able to now have a much more creative vibe with all of it, spiritually, the whole journey, so to speak. And so, yes, I do believe that the business side of it is just as spiritual and empowering as the spiritual side of what I'm doing in my life. They work together.
have we made a mistake to even think of the ministry as a vocation?
That's a provocative question, because I love that question, Paul, because if you look in the scripture, you will find, I mean, who's our greatest bivocational example? Well, the number one is Jesus was a carpenter. Mm-hmm. He was a carpenter. Paul was a tent maker. And Paul, when he spoke to the church, and his motives were along those lines. He wanted to be chargeable to no one. Now, I don't feel it's a negative for anyone to make their living off the ministry. I think the Bible's also very clear that those that labor of the altar can partake of the altar and sustain themselves by that. But that is a provocative question in the way it should be considered.
The players in the New
that
Testament.
sounds like another episode.
Yeah. I'm taking it off the rails here.
No, it's a valid point. I'm serious. I mean, I
would argue
that's a deep
Barnabas
dive. Very
is
deep
one
dive.
of the central figures of the New Testament. Not as much text given to him, but the fact that he was a man of means. His family, his sister owned a house as well, and that was a gathering place in Jerusalem. He was a man of means. The first time you hear about him, he's giving something away, a piece of land. You know, he was a central figure in the expansion of the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting up against time here, and I want to just give Barry the floor on a couple other points. So your concrete business, right? So, but mainly like bricklayer, concrete block layer, things of that nature.
Brick, block, and stone.
All right. So 3D printing of concrete.
It's fascinating.
Have you took a dive on that yet, or what are you? How are you feeling?
I have dove into the YouTube world of concrete structure printing. That's
Okay.
about as far as I've gotten. I've
All
looked
right.
at it. It is fascinating. I love the concept of it. They also do things like road printing.
Yep.
It's amazing stuff. I've looked at that, and I feel a creative flow with that. but I'm not practically in a position to do anything about
it's cost
that
prohibitive, is it not?
Well, to get to that place to actually do it, the equipment tooling up, becoming
It
viable.
seems like right now that the equipment barrier to entry is pretty steep.
Yes.
You got to have some pretty deep pockets, and so we're doing additive manufacturing also with metals now. So you can it's 3D printing, but they call it additive manufacturing.
Okay.
So they can actually 3D print stainless steel, copper parts. I went to a trade show a couple years ago, and they had a nozzle that was probably, I don't know, 5 to 6 inches long, and it was 4 cylinders that were about the diameter of a pencil, like a number 2 pencil, and they were like DNA. They were wrapped around each other, and then there were holes throughout all of that, and that was all done in the printing of that copper. So a very, very technical part that would cost a lot to make traditionally, they can print. But in Barry's world, what we're seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, is I watched a YouTube video the other day where they actually printed about a 1,000 square foot square home where they were printing the walls.
It's amazing.
Like just laying it down. Do you feel, I mean, in terms of the application of that from insulation to green energy, the whole bit, I mean, it does seem like it can have traction in the future. If you were gambling on it, though, like if we were going to put odds on it right now, how likely do you see that coming to fruition? Or do you think it's just, well, it's kind of cool, but it probably won't?
I think it's inevitable because it is along the lines of automation, which is this is the Industrial Revolution continued. The more you can automate, it's always going to be profitability and bottom line that drives people in entrepreneurial endeavor. And the short answer is a 3D printer will build 24/7 and never make an injury claim. That's
fair. Yeah.
That's an appeal.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, maybe we need to be looking at some 3D concrete printers. All right. Last thing. This is the Misfit Social podcast, and we know that the 4 of us are misfits. Who is a misfit that throughout history, they can be with us still or no longer with us, somebody that you've looked up to and admired that you were like, that cat or that person is a total misfit?
That inspires you, right?
Oh, yeah. You mentioned Putin at one point, so...
Well,
yeah, that's an episode. We need to unpack that for sure.
You just got to have some context for that. Go ahead.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I've pondered that very much, but I think you look at, obviously on the spiritual side of my life, my heroes tend to be spiritual heroes. And, that's been the driving force of my life. So I think, and this would be an easy one when you look at Jesus, he did not fit as much as he has defined the world. Anybody that signs their name and puts a date on it is paying homage to his historical existence. The one that should have fit the most in his creation, misfit.
Wow. That's
And
well
didn't
said.
and embraced a system that called him a misfit and rejected him.
Yeah.
And so that has been the center of my life and defines it still. And so I really didn't know if we were going to discuss the whole misfit thing, but it is so true that as you pursue higher calling, this is my personal feeling. If you pursue the voice and the call of the higher calling or adventure, however you would define that, you are not going to fit in your surroundings. And that is the number one thing that you will overcome in the endeavor of higher calling or adventure, the call of the wild, however you want to look at that.
Pushback everywhere.
It's going to start right in your inner circle, and it's never going to stop. And so to be a misfit.
That's another podcast right there.
To be a misfit is to be a power is to be a force of creation.
Wow. Well said.
Yeah. Slam dunk.
We
bam.
got that on tape.
Yeah, we got that one. Well, Barry, thank you for being a misfit and
Thank you so
referencing what we consider to be the chief misfit. We would agree with you on that very much. It's been a good episode having you. Appreciate it. And
Thank you so much.
Let's go fly
This
fishing.
is let's
Glad
go
you're
catch
here.
some fish. Let's go
fish.
put a hook in the
All
water.
right.
Another episode of Misfit Social
tungsten.
Podcast. Love you, boys.
See you around.
Love you back.
Thank you.
Let's go.